Richard here. And if you're like me, you've earned a few wrinkles and maybe a creak or two. I'm a chiropractor by trade, but mostly I'm just a guy who loves helping people feel great. Let's cut through the noise and get right to the good stuff that actually works. No stretching, unless you really need it, and then we'll talk.
You know, I'm 60 years old now, and I can honestly tell you I feel better, stronger, and sharper than I did back in my late 20s. It wasn't always this way, though. I've spent decades as a chiropractor, digging deep into the science of health, not just fixing backs, but figuring out how to optimize the whole machine. And what I've learned about longevity, about truly living to 100 and beyond, well, it's a story worth telling. A note before we begin. Please read. Disclaimer. I am sharing this information based on my professional experience as a chiropractor and health expert, but none of this is medical advice. I am not a medical doctor. Always consult with your primary healthcare provider before starting any new diet, exercise regimen, or making changes to medications or existing health routines. This is for informational and educational purposes only. It all comes back to my friend Mike. Mike was one of those guys who always had the latest gadget and the hottest take. A few years ago, he was absolutely obsessed with a video clip that kept popping up online. You've probably seen a version of it. It's the one where some folks in the medical community, bright minds, no doubt, start talking about how, back in the caveman days, half of all people died before they hit 30. They jump ahead to 1840, and that number only bumped up to 35. The argument? That for tens of thousands of years, living organically and naturally didn't make a damn bit of difference. They claim science and medicine are the only reason we live past 30, saying you'd be dead by 30 unless some doctor came in and said we can increase your life expectancy using science. Mike would tell me, see, Richard, all your healthy eating and exercise, it's just the drugs and the vaccines that saved us. I'd chuckle and say, hold on there, Mike. That's a classic case of cherry-picking the facts. The real heroes of longevity. You see, the medical community loves to point out that in the early 1900s, the average person only lived to about 32. And yes, as the century progressed, life expectancy soared. But was it all because of vaccines, antibiotics, and the pills we associate with modern medicine? Here's the part they often leave out, and it's a massive piece of the puzzle. The big spike in longevity actually occurred before the broad use of antibiotics and most vaccines. The real heroes? Plumbing and sanitation engineers. Mike, picture this. In those old, crowded cities, over half the children died before they turned 15. What were they dying of? Things like cholera, typhoid, and dysentery, all spread by contaminated water and terrible sewage conditions. When cities finally invested in cleaning up the sewage and creating proper sanitation, in America, the UK, France, everywhere, those infections virtually vanished. If you mathematically exclude that tragic child mortality data from the life expectancy formula, the number for the early 1900s shoots up much higher. The simple revolutionary act of separating clean drinking water from raw sewage was the single greatest public health measure in human history. Now, did medicine later extend life further with antibiotics? Absolutely, but it wasn't the first or the biggest jump. And that brings us to the core question Mike and I always debated. Do we want to manage disease, or do we want to create health? Most of modern medicine's approach, which Mike used to rely on, is about managing disease. They lower your blood pressure, but they don't fix why it was high. They give you a pill for acid reflux, but that just suppresses the symptom. It doesn't correct the cause. That model will extend your life, no doubt, but often at the expense of quality. I look at it this way. I only want to live as long as I have the quality of my health. I do not want to end up in a facility where people have to care for me around the clock. That, to me, is not living. So we have to stop focusing on just managing symptoms and focus on increasing our fitness reserve. Mike learned this the hard way. When he finally got a V2 max test, which measures your body's maximum capacity to use oxygen and is one of the best predictors of longevity, his results were abysmal. His engine was sputtering. Creating health is about optimizing function. It means making your metabolism flexible, increasing your hormone sensitivity, building tremendous stress tolerance, a strong parasympathetic nervous system, and protecting yourself from sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass that steals your strength and independence as you get older. Lessons from the centenarians. To really crack the code, I started looking at the places where people thrive, not just survive. I'm talking about centenarians, people who live over 100 years old. The undisputed champion is Japan. Can you believe they currently have over 95,000 centenarians? 95,000! We need to learn from them. And what I found isn't some miracle drug, it's a lifestyle, starting with the children. In Japan, they have a mandated food and nutrition education program in schools, taught by dietitians who aren't deeply influenced by the junk food industry. Kids are learning principles that last a lifetime. They eat a different plate than us. They consume less refined grains, and their soy intake is mostly fermented soy products, like natto or miso, which are loaded with healthy microbes and a great source of vitamin K2 for bone and arterial health. Here's a fantastic little secret. Japanese people consume 9 times the amount of iodine as people in America, largely from things like seaweed. That iodine is anti-estrogenic, and the seaweed offers a blend of all the essential trace minerals, too. And they consume more salt than Americans, but they balance it with far more potassium from avocados and leafy greens. The problem isn't the sodium, it's the potassium deficiency that throws off the sodium-potassium pump that powers every cell. The Japanese practice a principle called hara hachi bu, which means eating only until you are 80% full. This is critical because when you overeat, especially low-quality food, you overload your mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells, with too much fuel. You damage the engine and set yourself up for metabolic trouble. Before we dive into the 18 steps, let's look at one other place, Hong Kong. They live even longer on average than the Japanese. And here's the counterintuitive part. People in Hong Kong consume the most meat of any other place on Earth, about 323.9 pounds per person per year. And it's mostly beef and pork, the two meats we're often told to avoid. What this tells us is that sometimes you need to find out what everyone agrees on and go in the opposite direction. It suggests that the simple story of meat is bad is just too simple. People in Hong Kong also do a lot of walking and eat a lot of seafood. Longevity is a mosaic, not a single tile. 18 practical steps for a longer and healthier life. So let's take those lessons and break down the 18 scientifically proven practical steps Mike and I eventually adopted to truly build a long and healthy life. Cellular and metabolic health. Reverse insulin resistance. The single best test is fasting insulin. You want yours under 7, maybe even under 5. The fix? Go low carb and eliminate sugar and industrial starches. Activate autophagy. This is your body's self-cleaning mechanism for damaged cells. Flip the switch with regular intermittent fasting and periodic prolonged fasting, 48 or 72-hour fasts. Boost your mitochondria. Your energy factories need quality fuel and the right cofactors. The solution is quality nutrition, especially high-quality amino acids from animal protein. Avoid seed oils, soy, corn, canola. Embrace hormesis. applies short, manageable stress to the body to force it to adapt and grow stronger. This includes saunas, heat, cold showers or baths, and certain phytonutrients. Hypoxia training, using specialized masks to restrict air during exercise. This enhances your V2 max. Get your vitamin D, sun. You need sun exposure. If you can't get sun, aim for a vitamin D level between 60 and 80 nanograms per milliliter with supplements. Eat fermented foods. Expose your body to diverse microbes. This helps build a strong gut microbiome, which is essential for almost every bodily function. Fitness, strength, and stress. Fix your sleep, the game changer. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of quality, solid sleep. Take magnesium glycinate an hour before bed. Cool room. Set your room temperature between 62 and 68 degrees for optimal sleep. Light reset. Go outside in the early morning for 20 minutes to expose your eyes to sunlight. This resets your circadian clock. At night, wear blue blockers if you're looking at screens. Cut the stimulants. Too much caffeine throughout the day blocks your adenosine receptors, which